Yes, people, welcome to the Premier League and European Review Show. I have got Devo from the Mad Sports Network. Devo, how are you, me old mucker?
I am good. I'm always happy to see you, Savva. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to it, mate.
I've got a haircut just for you today, Devo, because I knew I was going to be seeing you.
Hey? Such a gent.
Do I look like I did when you first met me in college at the age of about 17 or 16?
Shall we talk about some football? Let's
talk some football. So, first of all, welcome to anyone who is in the chat. This is the show where we get to talk about not just Tottenham Hotspur, which is fantastic for me. We get to talk about the Premier League. We'll look at all of the results from the weekend. We'll look at all of the goings on. Which managers need to be sacked? Which managers have been sacked? Top four. We'll look at the European competitions as well. So, Devo, let's jump straight in and let's start with your boys. So I think on the Saturday you had Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest, United and Chelsea drew, and then Man City won. So it was a case of right, if you could really put some distance between you and those other teams, and then you end up getting a 1-1 draw at Southampton. How do you feel? Should it have been 1-1, or should you have been well out of sight by half time?
We should have been outside by half time. We had a ton of chances in that game. Jesus missed a few good chances, but he doesn't seem the same player after the Liverpool game. His form's kind of dipped, which happens to players. Do you know what I mean? It happens.
Yeah.
But we need him putting away those chances if we are to put together a title challenge. I think most Arsenal fans with a bit of sense about them will realise that the more points we put on the board now is for the top four challenge. It's not necessarily a title challenge. I've been carried away just like quite a few others where I'm like, hey, is this going to be our year? But if we realistically think about it, we're looking for a top four finish. So that point is 2 points dropped as far as I'm concerned. We should have won that game. The amount of chances we had, we was in control. Second half, we lost the intensity, we lost the urgency. We allowed Southampton back in the game. And fair play to them. By the end of the 90 minutes, I think they deserved that point.
Yeah, it was a strange one. I mean, I thought you came out the traps magnificently. Some of the football you were playing was brilliant, and I thought you should have been 3 or 4-0 up after about 10 minutes. It wasn't your day, but in the grand scheme of things, happy with the point. The fact that it's, again, another game you've not lost. You're still top of the table. Where'd you sit with that?
I'm not happy with the point, just because they were there for the taking. And if we were showing a little bit more composure in front of goal, as you said, we're 3-4 up at half time. And we come away with a good 3 points on a weekend where a lot of teams drop points. It would have been nice, but it's not the worst result. So we can't complain. I think St Mary's is a bit of a bogey stadium for us and has been for the last few years. So I think in the grand scheme of things, we will find out how valuable or how damaging that point will be.
Yeah, I mean, even if you win your game in hand, you go 8 points clear of the team in third. So from that point of view, that's a wonderful start to the season for you lot, right?
It is, yeah. The only problem is that game in hand's against Man City. So,
but it's only Man City, right?
If we do City, then that's a real massive marker. But I don't know when that game's been rescheduled for. That's the issue. I think the big thing for us is keep this form up until the World Cup, and then let's see how we do once everyone's back from the World Cup, because it's going to be a complete clean slate for everyone. No one knows what's going to happen after this because it's unheard of. So let's go into that World Cup with a cushion, 8 points, 9 points, 10 points cushion to the teams battling for the top four. And then let's hope that we can just keep that throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, so let's talk then. So from that point of view, your goal scorer, yet again, Granit Xhaka. Now, this is a guy that, again, from looking from the outside in, right, and as a fan that doesn't watch him every week, Xhaka's had an interesting Arsenal career. I'm guessing he's had his haters within the Arsenal fan base, but this year he seems to be a completely different player, playing in a different role, and you guys seem to really be reaping the benefits from that. So what's changed from that point of view with Xhaka?
I think a big part of Granit Xhaka's renaissance is that he's trusted by Arteta. He is possibly the one of the most key, if not the most important player in our system, because he allows Arteta a bit of flexibility. He can, if Partey's not there, he can play a little bit deeper. If Partey's there, you've seen it, how far up the pitch he's playing at the moment. He allows Zinchenko to come inside, and he covers that left back when Zinchenko's playing, or when Tierney's there, Tierney could bomb on because he knows Xhaka will cover for him. He does so many jobs. He's a leader without the armband. I think he's been one of the best central midfielders in the league this season so far. But this isn't just an isolated season. I think he's been great for us for a couple of years. He has moments of, madness where I think he's just a very passionate player. And sometimes it just goes a bit over the top. But I think the last 2 seasons, he has been integral. Every time he's playing on the pitch, we look so much better with him in the team. When he's out, we don't look the same. So I think any real Arsenal fan who's watched us since Arteta's been there will realise how key he has been to our improvement overall since Arteta's come in.
Okay, so last point on your boys then. Look, you've got Nottingham Forest at home. No, you haven't. Yes, you have. You've got Nottingham Forest at home on, I want to say Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff, by which point, just looking, Man City would have already played their game against Leicester. Chelsea would have played at Brighton. Liverpool would have played at Leeds. Some tough games for those clubs there. Do you expect a response, a win against Nottingham Forest at home, and what can you do for the rest of this season? Because obviously I know you're a sensible Arsenal fan, the way I like to think I'm a sensible Spurs fan. But do you think you'll win that game? And what are your expectations now with the start you've made? Is top 4 a must for you boys?
I think top 4 is a must before a ball was kicked.
Right.
I think that just to have natural progression. Each year you should be better than the last, and I think for us, top 4 is a must this season. We've put the building blocks in place now, and it's just about continuing down that road. If we were to win the league, then bloody hell, well done. But top 4 is a must. In terms of the Nottingham Forest game, I think it depends on what's happening on Thursday, tomorrow, because we're in a position in Europa League where I think we can rotate the team now. He played Saka, he's played Jesus, he's played Xhaka in all these games, but I think we're pretty much through. If we can get a bit of a rest in the legs so that we're fresh for Sunday, then I think we'll beat Forest.
Yeah.
But if we have to put a team out on Thursday that's full up with first teamers, we looked a bit leggy against Leeds. We looked a bit leggy against Southampton. If we can avoid that, I think we'll beat Forest. But Forest worry me. They've got Lingard likes to score against us. They beat us at City Ground last year. So yeah, they do worry me. But we should be winning those kind of games.
Okay, let's move on from your side of North London. Let's carry on the thing with Nottingham Forest then. So Liverpool went to Nottingham Forest, had the lion's share of possession, lost 1-0. And I think what was surprising about that, I think if you had asked me 3 weeks ago, is that a surprising defeat? I would have said no. But they just got a beaten Rangers 7-1. They beaten Man City 1-0. I think if I'm not wrong, I think they scraped a win past somebody else. I think they'd won 3 in a row. You're thinking, right, you're playing bottom of the league, Nottingham Forest, really kick on, and they've not. Are we going to see a bit of a yo-yo season from Liverpool here, where this is a bit of a transition to get in the likes of Tsimikas, Harvey Elliott, Fabio Carvalho, Nunes, Diaz, and we're seeing a different Liverpool now?
Yeah, 100%. I said this before the ball was kicked. I said this season will be Liverpool's last amongst the elite in this league, because I think there's so many different parts of that team that need changing or that are aging, that they're kind of in a transition period. Mane's gone. Salah's not getting any younger. I mean, he's still a top player, but I don't think he's going to hit the heights that he had before. Van Dijk's getting older. Henderson's old. Milner's old. Fabinho's playing like he's 38. And they've got injury worries. They've had this injury worries now for the last 2 years. They've got players who are injury prone. When I looked at that starting 11, like Thiago, brilliant player, but you need him on the pitch. When I looked at that starting 11 against Forest, I was worried for Liverpool. It didn't look like a top side. So I wasn't surprised at Forest picking up the 3 points there.
It's crazy though, isn't it? The week before, they're putting in a gritty performance against Man City, who people were tipping to go there and win 3-4-0, and getting that win. And then you think, right, you got to kick on. But are Liverpool? I mean, look, if we look at the table, Liverpool right now, I don't put a lot of stock in league position at this stage, but I do look at the gaps in points. So at the moment, Liverpool are 5 points off of fourth with a game in hand. So you would say that they're firmly in a top 4 battle, right? They will. Do you think they can come back and get a top 4 place? Or has the cap been thrown amongst the pigeons now with, obviously, you boys didn't make top 4 last year and now you're up there? Newcastle, Chelsea and Man United seem to have found some form with new managers. I mean, is there a real danger that Liverpool don't get it?
There is a danger. There's a real danger, yeah. You'd expect them to be in and around it, but as you said, you don't want to leave too much space for the likes of ourselves and for the likes of Chelsea and United. United, for all the issues that they have, they are putting together some good results. Ten Hag, you can see what he's trying to do there. You can see that the players are kind of buying into what he's doing there. I would be worried if I was a Liverpool fan. I would be really worried. You can't. They relied on it for quite some time on the greatness of Mane and Salah. Mane's obviously not there. Salah's not hitting the heights that he was previously. Núñez is coming and he's scoring goals, but there's something missing there.
But don't you think? I mean, this is a conversation I was having with a mate the other day. I think what we do in football is we always think it's like for like. So lots of people are saying, "Oh, well, Mane's gone and the other players coming in aren't as good." But I feel like the players they brought in aren't meant to be like for like because they're not the same as Mane. Like Diaz isn't the same player as a Mane. Núñez is more of a centre forward. Are we seeing Klopp almost, reinventing Liverpool? Therefore, needs a year to get that right, and then next year with the addition of like a Bellingham or a Milenkovic-Savic that they're going to be back up there.
Possibly, but the history hasn't. It doesn't look good on Klopp in terms of him rebuilding teams. He struggled to rebuild his team at Dortmund. He struggled to rebuild his team at Mainz. It looks like he's struggling to rebuild this Liverpool side. So it is quite a big rebuild. When you look at the spine of the team that they've had for such a long time, it's been wonderful and it's performed at a high level for a long time, even with the high intensity football that Klopp plays, which for me, I thought is not sustainable for that amount of time, but he's done it. You'd think that after a while they just run out of legs, but he's managed to do it. But I think this season and next season is huge for Klopp. And I don't know if you have time in this league, with the amount of money that's in this league, the amount of teams that are improving, that you have time to rebuild your squad. Do you know what I mean? It's probably the worst time to do it. It's like when we built the Emirates thinking that we'd be ahead of everyone. And then Chelsea was like, we've got money, City got money, and all these people started to, there was money in the game. Like, we thought we was ahead of the curve. We're not.
I mean, I want to give some credit to Forest as well. But just before we do that, I mean, has Klopp got enough credit in the bank should they not make top 4 this year? Has his last 4 or 5 years at the club? Or is it like you've said now, there's a lot of teams at the top and, Arsenal are now joining that top level party. Newcastle are joining that party. Would they stick with him, do you think?
I think they should. I think the only way Klopp leaves is if he wants to leave.
Right.
Unless it goes drastically wrong and they finish 8th. Do you know what I mean? I think if they finish just outside of the top 4, for me, give him another season. I think it would be just bonkers to get rid of him if he finished 5th. He's just outside the top 4 with all the injury problems that they've had, trying to build a new squad. I think Klopp, it wouldn't surprise me if Klopp said to himself, I can't do this. I've done everything I can at Liverpool. I want a new challenge or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me. But I would be shocked if Liverpool sacked him. I think it would be silly if they did.
Absolutely. And look, last word on this game before we move on to the Tottenham-Newcastle game, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. Look, Forest, strange one, isn't it? Forest were absolutely rock bottom of the Championship, I believe, when Steve Cooper came and took them over. I can't believe in their wildest imaginations they thought that he'd take them from bottom to the Premier League. They've lost, 15 players on loan, went back. They bought, 23, 24. I think they bought about 19 right-backs, 9 strikers. I mean, can you see them staying up?
No, I think they will go down. But I think they'll go down fighting. I think this year, the relegation is going to be very, very tight between quite a few teams. I think it's going to get to like the last couple of weeks, and you're going to have about 6 or 7 teams that will be, looking over their shoulders and really shitting themselves. But I think Forest are playing football the right way. I like Steve Cooper as a manager. I've liked him since he was at Swansea. I think he's a very good young manager, and I'm glad that they gave him the contract when there was those rumours that he might get sacked.
Agreed.
I thought that would have been terrible. So I'm happy he's got the job. I'm happy that he's going to get to see out this season at least. And it would surprise me if they stayed up. But if I had to pick 3 teams, they would be amongst those 3 teams.
Okay, let's talk Tottenham Hotspur. The gift that keeps giving. I think since I've known you, I must have known you now for 22 odd years, Devo. And I feel like I've just been in the same cycle in that whole time with Tottenham Hotspur, just never quite knowing, always being let down. Look, we lost to Man United, and it was really poor. Like a decent Man United team in transition, players off the park. And all Spurs fans, including me, said, right, you've got to bounce back, right? At home, Newcastle are a good team, but let's be fair. Come on, And again, we found ourselves 2-0 down at half-time. Mistakes galore. Defensively poor. And luck, we got the goal back from Kane. But after that, never threw anything at them. Didn't throw a kitchen sink. And I think Newcastle won quite comfortably in the end. What did you make of it?
I'll be honest with you, Savva. I was watching the first half and you were all over him, so I switched it off. I thought, I've seen this movie before. I don't need to watch this. And then I was looking on WhatsApp and Simon was like laughing. Spurs. I thought, what's he laughing at? Spurs 2-0 down. So yeah, I don't understand it because you started really well. Had all the possession, were probing. Son had about 18 shots. Kane was playing really well. He's linking play up really well, bringing players in. And then, all of a sudden, 2-0 down. That first goal, I do think, was a bit lucky. I do think Lloris was a bit unlucky there. I think that could have been a foul. But yeah, the defending was terrible.
Let me ask you more broader then. Across the season, what do you make of Spurs? Because you've got Spurs fans that will go, "Oh my God, 3rd in the league, top of the Champions League group, it's brilliant." And then you get fans like me, who I'm old and ugly enough to know how this story goes. Right, I've seen this movie before, as you said just now, and the football is atrocious. We don't beat anybody who's half decent. Again, another game tonight where, a decent team, but we can't beat them. What do you make of Spurs as a club? Taking your Arsenal hat off and as a football fan.
Yeah. So I think what Spurs have done is they've tried to get a quick fix in their last couple of matches. In Mourinho, serial winner, not necessarily the best philosophy in terms of attacking football, but he's known to win and win straight away. Conte is very much the same. Known to win straight away, not necessarily the most attractive football. So you can see that Spurs are looking to cross that cross that line and join the elite clubs and win trophies and win things straight away. The issue is that if you're playing this kind of, counter-attacking football, and you're not on the front
That's
foot,
polite.
it goes wrong. And it goes wrong. It looks really bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've long thought Conte is a great manager. I can see what he's trying to do with Spurs. He's trying to implement his system. But I think too much of Spurs' hopes rest on Kane and Son. You've got Kuliaski, who had a great season last season. Not really done it this season for whatever reason. He's been in and out of the team. Richarlison's not really done it since he's come in. So you're still relying on Kane and Son. And Son has not been on it this season.
Right.
So you're relying on Kane.
Isn't that a worry, Devo? I mean, the thing is, Son gets a lot of praise, and honestly, within our fan base, he has this cult-like status where he could kill someone and they'd still stick up for him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but players have off form, but top players, I don't remember too many top players having this long a period where their form is really poor. Again tonight, all his shots are kind of dragged. His passing's poor. He can't beat a man. What's happened to him in the player that was Golden Boot like 5-6 months ago? How does that happen to a player?
That's the problem. Golden Boot. Personally, I think he's got main character syndrome. I think there's been rumours come out in the last few days of him looking to move away. He wants to move. Saw something ridiculous about Liverpool trying to make a move for him or something. But these rumours start from somewhere. Yeah, these rumours start from somewhere. And it would surprise me if he's got people in his ear saying, "Look, you've won Golden Boot. You should be the main man somewhere. You're never going to be the main man here with Harry Kane there. This is why he's shooting every 2 seconds." Yeah, I feel like he has main character syndrome, and it wouldn't surprise me if a few months down the line, the truth comes out and he's like, "I need to leave. I want to be the main man. I want to." Do you know what I mean? But something isn't right with Son. I've said it since the beginning of the season. Something doesn't look right in his body language. It's not just his performances. He just doesn't seem like the same player, same character. Yeah,
I mean, Son for years has been this bubbly guy that everyone loves, and it's all those little handshakes and all this kind of stuff and smiling. And as you said, when I watch him now, it's almost as though I don't want to say he's trying too hard, because I don't think he is, but it's almost like every time he gets the ball, he feels like something magical needs to happen. Whereas I feel like when Kane gets the ball, Kane's a bit more of a, right, how can I help the team when I get the ball? And let's be fair. As you said there, main character syndrome. Kane's your main character, right? Kane's your player one. Yeah. Let's talk about those rumours then. So the big ones that are coming out at the moment are Real Madrid and Liverpool again. Liverpool, there was a rumour last year. So let's look at both those clubs. Real Madrid have Vinicius Jr. that plays where Heung-min Son plays, and Liverpool have Luis Diaz that plays there, right? And I mean, you could equally argue that Carvalho could play out there, or Salah could, whatever. Do you really see him going to one of those two teams? What do you think it would cost to get him out? And does he start?
I think if he goes to Liverpool, we'll start with Liverpool. I think if he goes to Liverpool, it would probably be as Salah's replacement. I think if Salah was to go to Real Madrid or wherever else that could afford him, Son would be a perfect replacement for him. If Son was to go to Real Madrid, again, Benzema's not getting any younger. If they can't get Mbappe, then Son would be he would fit into that system pretty well. Obviously, you've got Vinicius on one side, you could probably put Son on the other, or if Son goes through the middle, if Benzema's getting a bit older.
Do you think it's happening too late though, Devo? Do you think like Son's going to be 31 next year? Do you think it's happening? Huh?
Well, I did not know he was 30. I still thought he was like 27.
No, he's here you go. Let's just double check. I think I'm right. So I'll tell you what, I won't come off the page I'm on because I need the information. But somebody in the chat, I'm pretty sure Son's just turned 30. He's going to be 31 next year, and Kane's the year below him. But has this move? I'm not sorry, a hypothetical move. Is this hypothetical move next year when he's about to turn 31? Is it happening a little bit too late for him for a top club? Is he that good? I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying he's not.
It's a good question. I think quite a lot of players these days are betting on themselves a bit later on in their career. I think you've seen big moves for Lewandowski at 35. I'm not putting Son on the Lewandowski level, just using him as a kind of example. There's players moving clubs at later stages of their career nowadays. So I think he would probably still have suitors, especially if he was to, go ahead and go to Bayern, for example. He could go to Bayern and play out the rest of his career for the next 3, 4, 5 years, be a top player in the Bundesliga. He's already got ties with the Bundesliga, obviously, coming from Leverkusen. So I think there would be a market for him if he was to really test it. Obviously, the problem is you got Levy, who you got convinced to sell you, and that's never easy.
Right. And I suppose the issue with trying to sell a Heung-min Son, with trying to buy a Heung-min Son is you're not only buying what the player's worth as a footballer, you're trying to convince Levy to sell a player that must give Spurs so much money from the kind of Asian marketing aspect, right? So, I mean, how much in your opinion, what if you were a chairman of a club and your manager turns around and says, right, I want to buy Son, by which time he'll be 31. How much are you as a chairman going, yeah, that's a good price? And what's too much?
Gosh. Oh, that's a tough question.
Well, they're not meant to be easy, Devo, it's not.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Honestly, I think, how long has he got his contract? Do we know how many years he's got left in his contract?
Again, this is the best thing about comments. Anybody in the chat, could somebody look up how long has Son got left on his contract?
Because if you're looking at 3-4 years, then you're looking at close to or just over 100 million in today's market.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't think it's that long because I know Kane's got 18 months left, right? I'm not sure about Son, and I think the difficulty with the Spurs have got at the moment, Devo, is what if you lose both at once, right? Can you imagine Spurs with Levy trying to replace that many goals from both of them in one go? So, again, I mean, if I just before we move on, I want to talk about Kane as well in a second before we move on to another club. But look, I get a lot of stick in the Spurs fan base, Devo, because I make this statement, as True Blue has said, and big up to everyone in the chat. Stop being stingy with the likes. We've only got 16 likes. Smash that like button, people. Come on. We just done 3.5 hours of streaming and we do this for you. I've always said that I don't think Son is world class in any way, shape or form. I said, I think on his day, I think he's a brilliant finisher, but I don't think his all-round game is world class. Hence why I don't think up until this date, any of the big clubs have come in with a solid, there's 120, 130. We want him at Madrid, Munich, PSG. Do you know what I mean? What do you make about Son and the world-class debate?
It's a tough one because my idea of world-class is if you're world-class, you have to be top 5, 6, 7, 8 in your position for you to be world-class. Do you know what I mean? And when I think of Son, I think Salah, Mbappe, I don't put Messi in these debates because he's just.
No one's
going to reach him.
I haven't put Messi and Ronaldo in these debates for about a decade. It's not worth it, right? They're just a different level.
Mane's, Vinicius Juniors, these guys who turn up and do it all the time. I don't think he's just at that level. I think he's probably just a level underneath. So I wouldn't say he's world class personally. I think he has the tools to be world class. But he doesn't have the consistency for me. I think there's periods where he does go a bit.
It's his all-round game for me. It's like what we're seeing now is when he stops scoring goals, I don't see enough from him that makes me think, okay, you're not scoring, but this is what you can do. With Kane, and unfortunately they're always compared because obviously they're in the same team. With Kane, it's okay, you might not be scoring loads. I know he is at the moment, but you might not be scoring loads. But he's dropping deep. He's linking up play. He's playing those through balls. He's almost being the playmaker. I mean, just on the Kane piece, and people in the chat tell me, what do you think? Is Harry Kane, this is the question I'm asking you as well, Devo, is Harry Kane going to sign a new contract? He's got 18 months left. He's going to be 30 in July, I believe. Sad that I know when his birthday is. He's not won anything in his career. Now, the argument you'll get, Devo, is, well, he wants to beat Shearer's record. And I've got no doubt if he plays the next 3-4 years in the Premier League, he will obliterate it because he's got about 67, I believe, to go to catch him up. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Problem is, where could he go? How much is he going to cost? And even in this summer, when he's going to have 1 year left on his contract, what is Levy going to demand for his star man, even with a year?
Yeah. For me, I can see him finishing his career at Tottenham.
Right.
And I think if he does, obviously, there's a lot to be said about being a club legend, let alone being the top goal scorer in your domestic league, a record that no one thought, I sure as hell didn't think anyone was going to touch Shearer's record. When you look at the difference between Shearer at the top and is it Andy Cole second? I can't remember who's second. I think it's Andy Cole. There's quite a...
Isn't it? Oh, I don't know. Henri, mate. I don't know.
Was it Rooney? I think Rooney. It's Rooney, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, of course it is. Sorry, yeah.
I think Rooney's got into second. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, if you look,
Rooney did play for about 45 seasons in a row, didn't he?
Yeah,
Wayne Rooney.
So. He did indeed. Yeah. I could see him staying at Spurs, and as much as I like to banter about he's not won anything and all of that stuff, he can look back at his career as an individual and say, I've won X amount of golden boots, top goal scorer in Premier League history, likely, top goal scorer for England. He's done his part. But then there must also be a little part of him that thinks, well, I could just go to Madrid or Munich and pick up a couple of league titles and maybe win the Champions League. So I wouldn't, I think any Spurs fan who was to dig him out for making that move would be quite disingenuous. I think you have to say at a point, you've done everything you could for this club. Yeah. Go and win your trophies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this is the key. This is the key thing for me, right, Devo, is as a player, when you're as good as Kane, when you've scored the goals that Kane has scored year after year after year, and as he's getting older, and I know that sounds weird because he's like 10 years younger than us, right? But as he's getting older, sorry to give your age away there on screen as well.
That's all right.
As he's getting older, surely he's got to be thinking to himself, I'm going to look back on my career. And during Super Sunday and they have a guest in the studio, right? And in that little blue box at the bottom, it says, it says Joleon Lescott, 322 Premier League appearances, 2 league titles or whatever it is. Yeah. Kane is just going to be goals, isn't it, at the moment? And if you were him, aren't you thinking, well, even if Conte does stay at Tottenham, is that enough to convince him that any kind of trophies coming his way in the next 2-3 years?
I think this season is a big season for Spurs. As you said, he's got 18 months left on his contract. If Spurs get nowhere near winning a trophy this year, he may be looking and thinking, right, I've had Mourinho, one of the best managers in the world. We won nothing. Conte's come in. I was told this, that, the other. We've won nothing. If these two managers, who are two of the best managers that we've had of this generation, can't get a trophy for this club, then I'm going to need to walk.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Do you think it's getting past the point of, lots of Spurs fans put a lot of stock in who the manager is to a player staying. So I keep hearing, well, if Conte walks, Kane will walk. But don't you think Kane now has seen it? Kane has seen this with Poch, with Jose, with Nuno, with Conte. Don't you think Kane must be sitting there thinking, okay, this has to stop being about the manager and it needs to be about what caliber of player are we bringing in the next window? And I don't mean this next, I mean like every window. He must be thinking, where are these top players coming to play with me?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I reckon he probably does. And I think, he was quite vocal in those interviews he was doing. Was it last year? Where he was mentioning things like that and wanting to play with the best and stuff like that. So I think players will always think of that. They'll probably see some transfers and think, hold on a minute, can't we do better than that? They may not say it, but I'm sure there's players sitting there thinking, why? Really? Why? But
I mean, listen, Dev, if you were a player, right? If you're Harry Kane, you're Heung-min Son, or one of the top players at Spurs, you're sitting around in the dressing room, right? And at the beginning of the next season, first game, you're looking in the dressing room and you're going, oh my God, there's Jude Bellingham, right? There's James Maddison. You're going, okay, something's happening here. But when you're looking around and going, okay, well, there's a 21-year-old Jed Spence who's not going to play, right? There's Perisic who's going to retire soon. There's Longley on loan. So there's no plan there. At what point do you become completely disillusioned? And could that be why Son is like now? Maybe that, I don't know, maybe the penny's dropped.
Maybe. Never thought of it of that particular way regarding Son. But yeah, you've got a point. I think the top players will probably look at some of the signings and think, I don't know if this is a caliber of player that we should be getting to take that next step. Because Spurs are very close, very, very close to making that leap. And I think, these are key moments, these are key windows. And perhaps Kane is looking at that and thinking, these guys aren't serious. Do you know what I mean? I would expect more. But again, it's not easy to navigate these windows. You look at some of these teams that look at Villa, for example. Right. Villa spent all this money trying to buy these names to join the bigger clubs, and it's not worked.
Yeah.
It's easy to ruin yourself.
So let's then talk about a club that has got money and a club that is going to navigate transfer windows, I think. Let's look at Newcastle United. Look, I think the owners have been brilliant. I think the new manager's been brilliant. And I think even the historic players that have stayed there have been brilliant. A lot was made of it, Devo. Newcastle's billionaire owners coming in. They're going to ruin football. They're just going to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They haven't yet. It's only been 2 windows, but they haven't. They've bought sensibly. They've brought in a manager that lots of people would have turned their nose up at. And he's been brilliant, hasn't he? I mean, what he's done there in a year has been absolutely short of excellent, right? What do you make of what's going on there?
I've always been a big fan of Eddie Howe for years. I think what he did at Bournemouth, when you think of what Bournemouth were when he got there, I think they were a kick away from being in non-league when he was there, and he brought them up from the bottom tier of the English Football League to the Premier League and made them a solid Premier League outfit. It's crazy the job that he did there. So I was glad when he got the Newcastle job. And one thing about the Saudi and the Qatari owners is that they're passionate about the sport. It's not like some of these American owners who come in and just see it as a business model and just want to dip their finger in this pond. They're quite passionate about the sport. So I think they have a idea and a philosophy that they bring to the club, and you can see it with Newcastle's transfer dealings. They're not just like, right, we've got money, let's just go and throw money at everything. They're making shrewd signings. They're making signings that Eddie Howe needs for his the way he wants to play football. I think they're signing young players. I think they may have paid maybe a bit too much for, but he's a young player with a lot of football ahead of him. So in time, it'll probably make dividends. But I think they are a scary prospect in what they could be. Yeah. But they remind me a lot of Man City when Man City first got their money. And Man City went out and got Julian Lescott. They went out and got these Premier League players who had experience, but they weren't big names. Put together
like Gareth Barry, Lescott.
Gareth Barry. I think they obviously shipped out big money for Robinho, which didn't really work out. But they made solid signings to make, and that's what Newcastle have done in my book.
Yeah, I think they've done really well. And what he's done with some of the historic players there, I mean, like Joe Linton, Almiron, I mean, I put a post up Sunday evening when they beat us, and I said, we can sit all day long and talk about, well, Conte's not been backed and, the players aren't good enough to play any football. But then I'm looking at a Newcastle team, with all due respect to them, with like Dan Burn, Shah, who everyone was saying was terrible, Longstaff, Willock, Almiron, Joe Linton. And you're thinking, if he can do that with them, there's no excuse. But sorry, I want to move on to Leeds in a second. Before I do, look, I should have talked about this when we were talking about the Spurs game. Sorry to be a bit jittery. But tonight, the big talking point, you've seen the offside decision in the Spurs Sporting game. Mm-hmm. Have you seen you've seen it, right?
No, I've not seen it. I saw them talking about it on Gillette. What do you think on Sky Sports? Yeah.
Well, this is one we need to talk about, right? So this is where I think lots of fans are getting confused as to what is the offside rule. So essentially, the ball's come across, and the first ball that was sent over, I think, by Perisic, Emerson Royal headed it. When Perisic played the ball, Royal was onside, right? So now imagine Royal's in line of the 6-yard box, and Kane is offside, right? So if Royal's header, though, didn't go where it was meant to because he's such a shit footballer. It didn't go where it was meant to. It actually went backwards, hit a defender, then into Kane's path, who was offside, and Kane's put it in the net from like a yard out. So now people are saying, well, what's the rule? Because Royal was intending for the ball to go to Kane, and then it would have been offside. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
But because it didn't go to Kane first, it's hit the defender. Now, I believe what they're saying is the rule is because the defender didn't deliberately play the ball.
Yeah, he didn't make a deliberate footballing action, yeah.
Right, he didn't make a deliberate action. It was headed onto him. He couldn't help that. So Kane was offside. Now, surely, mate, the rules have got to be clearer and simpler than this, right? Isn't it just getting a bit silly from our day of growing up when I'm pretty sure I knew what offside was to now where we've got 3 minutes at the end of the game going, is it a goal? Is it not? And then it was chalked off.
Yeah, I think it's the same with the handball rule. It's the same with the fact that it takes them 28 minutes to actually put the flag up for offside these days. They let the game go on, and all sorts of things can get. So they overcomplicated the game with some of these rules, and I do feel sorry for some of the referees and linesmen and stuff because there's so many different things that you have to now, think about. Whereas before it's like, I reckon he's offside, flags up, that's it. But yeah, it is very confusing for fans, but I understand that one because obviously if the ball's just deflected over someone's backside, they've not actually made an attempt to play the ball. It's tough to say that that they've actually interfered with play in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, like Sire said, if Royal's header hits the Lisbon defender, it should be a goal. For me, though, I mean, look, this is where I think I'm a level-headed fan, right? For me, I would say if that had been against Spurs, I would want the goal ruled out. That's where I think fans, we sometimes we can't step back emotionally. For me, when I first saw that go in, I thought that's not a goal. Like you can't say that Kane wasn't offside, and we can't say that Royal meant to play the ball off of the defender. So if Royal had just headed it down where he was meant to, such a shit player. If Royal had headed it down where he was meant to, Kane was offside. So I get why the goal was given, but do we need to go back? Does football need to go back, Devo, to a time where, all right, sometimes it was, goals were disallowed and they shouldn't have been. There was controversy, but I feel like what we've done is we've added a technology that still doesn't make it clear cut and still causes just as much controversy, but with referees doing this in the middle of the pitch for 3 or 4 minutes at a time. Do we just need to go back to, all right, we didn't get that one, but we'll get the next one?
The problem with that is there's so much money in football now. There's so many decisions that say for example, you come down to a relegation scrap, last game of the season, and a clear offside or clear handball or something goes in, and we haven't got VAR and the referee don't see it. That club's now being relegated. They may never make it back to the Premier League or into the Football League. That could be detrimental to the club as a whole. So understand the need for VAR. My issue with VAR is simply a video replay system. Mm-hmm. How do you bollock that up? How do you mess that up? The referee is literally, the referee should be in control of the game. You shouldn't have a guy in a room saying, look, change that because you've done that wrong. It should just be a guy saying, do you want another chance to have a look at that again? And the referee say, yeah, all right, because I'm not too sure. Go over to the screen. Yeah, actually, I was right. And that's it.
Right.
That's all it should be.
That's my next point, right? Whenever I'm sitting watching games with Graham, right, Graham always says to me, they do this for 3 minutes, then the referee goes, I'm going to go and have a look. Why not? They just go, but if the ref says that I'm not sure, they go, right, go and have a look. And the ref walks over and goes, yeah, no. So what is this whole 3 or 4 minute nonsense of sitting around
they've got
them?
Some other twat in a room trying to make a decision for him. It's like, you're not on the pitch. The referee on the pitch should officiate the game. Let him go and have a look at the screen and then give him 30 seconds to have a look at it again. If you can't make up your mind by that, then you don't know what you're doing. 30 seconds. Oh, I was wrong. It's not a penalty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
And I think the thing where people get frustrated is if that had been clear, literally, if the rule is that the defender hadn't committed, a clear action, right?
Yeah.
The VAR people should have looked at that once and gone, well, that's clearly not a goal because the defender couldn't help that. And then you go, okay, that's the rule. But it's the fact that it takes 3 or 4 minutes for them. And how many times are they seeing it in that 3 or 4 minutes? 20?
You know what it probably is? The fellow was probably in the loo. He's probably taking a piss. So they had to wait 3 or 4 minutes for him to come back.
Mate,
sorry, guys.
It must be. And look, that's not going to be the first controversial decision. But look, for me, I mean, look, I actually, lots of Spurs fans will hate me saying this. I agree. I agree. It wasn't a goal. For me, Kane was offside when the ball went in. Otherwise, what can we start doing? Saying that players are going to play it off defenders deliberately? So, I don't know with that one. Talk to me about, Aston Villa. We'll go to Leeds in a minute. Aston Villa, they sacked Steven Gerrard. They can't win a game for love nor money. And then, not even a new manager bounce. Just why? If you're Gerrard, you're at home, you're watching your team, you've just been sacked, and then they beat a good Brentford team 4-0 at home. Does that tell you how much they either didn't respect Gerrard or just didn't like playing his tactics? What is that?
Yeah, 100%. I've got a good friend of mine who's a massive Villa fan, and he could not wait to see the back of Steven Gerrard. I believe that was a very universal view from Villa fans. I feel like, I'll just basically say what he said. He said that he'd basically undone all the work that Dean Smith had put in, the culture around the club, had an identity, they played for each other. He's brought in mercenaries, he's brought in Coutinho, he's brought in all these players for big money. The Coutinho deal for me stinks. He's you're not going to get any resale value off him. If it does tank, he's there on 150 grand or whatever he's on. The Diego Carlos deal, he's 30, no resale value, paid over the odds. All these players that Gerrard brought in, and Villa have got one of the best academies in the country. And they've lost some of these players because of Steven Gerrard. Chelsea have picked up one of their better players. The likes of Cameron Archer, who's a very talented young player, can't get a look under Gerrard. A lot of Villa fans were upset by that, and I think it was just doomed from the beginning. I think they were right to sack him. Probably should have done it earlier.
What about they lost? Is it Chuck Mwanika?
Yeah.
I'm probably murdering his name, but the one that's gone to Chelsea, and it just felt that Gerrard was getting people in because of his name rather than his management ability or an actual plan of what he was trying to do. But
there's the whole Tyrone Mings, John McGinn thing with the captaincy. It stunk for a while there.
Yeah. Do you expect to see them go up the table now that they've got rid of Gerrard? Do you think there's enough quality there?
I think they've got a really good team. I think they've got a good team. They've got some good parts of that team. The problem is there's so many good teams in this league. You think, look how good Palace have been, and they're 2 points above relegation or something like that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's crazy. You think there's so many good teams. Newcastle, Leicester, you'd expect to get their act together at some point and go on a run.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've just won 2 back-to-back, right? And
yeah,
they're probably, I mean, let's move on to Leicester then. They're probably really gutted because they've won 2 games back-to-back. They've just had what was their result? It was a convincing 4-0 win.
They put 4 past Wolves, yeah.
And then your next game is at home to the champions. And we'll talk about them in a minute. But, I mean, was it a case of Leicester were always going to be okay because they've got enough? Or is this a temporary bit of form and the blip will continue?
I feared for Leicester. And I'm surprised Brendan Rodgers is still there. And I hope, I'm not a big Brendan Rodgers fan, but I hope, because it's never nice to see managers getting sacked in football, but I hope that he's able to turn it around for Leicester, because I think Leicester are a very well-run club. I respect what they've done, what they've achieved and the way that they've done it. And it would be nice to see a manager be given time and actually come out the other end and be proven right, because he was under a lot of pressure. But I think if they could keep the likes of Maddison fit, if they could keep Jamie Vardy playing for as long as humanly possible on these Red Bulls, keep the defence fit, because they've had horrible defensive injuries for the last couple of years, then they are a very, very good team, and they should be at the top end of the table, challenging the top 6. Playing City at home, I don't think Leicester will necessarily fear City, and I also think Haaland's out for that game as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about City in a minute. I've heard something about Haaland, but only tonight while I've been streaming, so I don't really know what that's all about. But just quickly, at Borodin, big up to yourself, and please keep smashing that like button, people, and get any questions you want in. I said, Savva, I'll put this to you. Does Gerrard have to go down to the Championship and get a side promoted now to retrieve his managerial career? Now, Devo, before you answer that, when we look at this is a guy that's gone to a league where it is just Celtic and Rangers. He's won the league with Rangers. He's got he's gone straight from that to a big Premier League job. Whatever we think, Villa's a big Premier League job. Failed spectacularly. Is his name going to be enough to get him another big job? Or like this guy says, does he now need to go and rebuild that reputation somewhere lower?
Yeah, I think I read today he's been linked with a Besiktas job in Turkey. Yeah, he's been linked with that apparently. I think going to the Championship is a brilliant idea for any young manager, any young English manager. The Championship is a lion's den of a league. You will learn if you've got it or not pretty quickly in that league. So I don't think it's necessarily embarrassing for him to pick up a Championship job. If West Brom, for example, they're a big club. Steve Bruce has got them in relegation down there. So I think if he was to go in there and turn things around and get West Brom where they should be, because they should be challenging promotion, that would be massive for his career going forward. I think that would be a good move for him in the Championship. Unless, of course, it goes tits up and then you're ruined.
Yeah. That's the difficulty, isn't it? I mean, if you go down to the Championship, it's such a tough league to get out of. But I like the idea of what Vincent Kompany is doing, for example. He's had his stint in Belgium. He's gone to Burnley, and a lot of people have gone, "Oh, well, that's a strange one." And over the summer, when you watch Burnley play, I've seen him a few times this year. He's completely transformed them to a ball-playing football team that are now, if I'm not wrong, top of the table.
2 points clear. Yeah, 2 points clear at the top.
And that I love to see that, because you think, okay, if you can do that, if he can maintain that and get Burnley back to the Premier League, you go, yeah, you've earned your, you know what I mean? You've earned your corn. You've gone and You've gone and done bits. For me, Gerrard just doing it in Scotland doesn't quite give you the stripes for me.
And we have to remember as well that Celtic were in a bit of a decline at that point as well. So it wasn't like he went to Scotland and, you know, he's beaten this current Celtic side or Brendan Rodgers' Celtic side, which were, you know, the Celtic side he went there for were in a bit of turmoil. So that Rangers, I'm not taking away from the Rangers. Well, I am taking away from their title win. It's an achievement, but it's a completely different ball game to what's happening in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, let's look at Man City now. Man City we all know what they could do last year. They won the league, I think, 93 points, something like that. They've gone and added Erling Haaland, and now that it's another string to their bow. So it's worrying that a team can score 99 goals last year without Haaland. They've then added Haaland. Are they as good? Are they as good this year? Are they better?
It's a tough one, really. They don't look as free-flowing as I've seen them in certain years, but they still have that ruthlessness about them. I think there's still quite a few players who haven't really hit their stride yet this season. You think of the like of Mahrez, he's not really been on this year. He was one of their better players last year. Grealish still hasn't really, you know, stepped up. You know, I think Bernardo Silva's been good, but he hasn't been great. I think defensively they haven't necessarily been brilliant. So I think there's still room for them to improve. I think Haaland has kind of overshadowed a lot of other things. Haaland and De Bruyne, De Bruyne is just always excellent. I think they've kind of overshadowed a lot of other things. And I think this is the key to Man City for me, is that when one or two players' forms dip, you usually have 3 or 4 others who can step in and they're at the top of their game. So they always consistently just churn out wins. Just no matter who's in the team, they can just churn out these wins, and I expect them to do that again.
Yeah, I feel what's worrying for me is I'm watching Man City, and whilst they're really, really good, you just feel they've got more gears, haven't they? And
they have.
What you've seen over the years is, I mean, again, people got knee-jerk at the beginning of this year because they drew a game. They drew a game to Newcastle, and I think they drew to Villa, and everyone went, "Oh, they're not as good." And if you actually look at the beginning of every Premiership season, Man City do this. They always have a couple of games.
They lose to Palace. Yeah, always lose to Palace.
Right.
And then they go on a run of 6 or 7 games without dropping a goal or whatever. Yeah, we've seen it before.
And I mean, if I was to say to you now, can you see in any way, shape, or form that Man City do not win this league? I mean, I know you guys are top and clear at the moment, but Man City are capable of going to win in the next 10, 15, aren't they, on the bounce? Is anyone else capable of that?
No. I'd be very, very, very surprised if Man City aren't on top of the league by the end of this season. I think they are a class above, which is why it's really confusing to me why they can't do it in Europe, because they've been the best team in England for 5-6 years easily. Even when Liverpool won the league, you still felt City were the best team in the country. So they're just a different beast.
So let's talk about them then, in terms of the one thing they've not managed to do is get over the line in the Champions League. That's been the Achilles heel. That's the thing that fans will always throw at Pep Guardiola. You know, he's not won it. He's a fraud, blah, blah, blah. Does Haaland swing that in their favour? Is that enough to swing it in their favour?
We'll see when the quarterfinal comes about, and we'll see what kind of team Pep puts out, if he gets out of his own way. Because that's usually what does it for City, is that they get into a situation and Pep changes formation or something. You think, why are you doing this for? Just play what you play every week. But Haaland is a difference maker. You know, we all know what he's about. You cannot stop him. He's too strong. He's too quick. He's too ruthless. I saw a stat saying it was the players who missed the most big chances. I think he was 5th or 6th, and he missed 7 big chances. He's got 17 goals, and he's missed 7 big chances. unbelievable how. And people say, "Oh, just goes tap-ins," but you have to have the intelligence to be in those positions, to know where the ball drops. It's not that easy. If it was, everyone would have 35 goals a year.
I was about to say, all of this just tap-ins. If it's just tap-ins, why does every centre forward not just tap in? Right, you've got to be there. It's the runs. It's taking players away. Let's move away from that. Leeds United, new manager came in, started really well. Looked like they're playing some lovely football. Even now, I look at them; they still play some good stuff. They look good on the eye. Is this just a case of no goal scorers? Because I just feel like Bamford's completely lost his way. Is this a case of, if they had Kane and Son, for example, up front, would we be seeing a Leeds team that are in the top 7 or 8 rather than in the bottom 3 or wherever they are?
Yeah, because I don't think they're that bad defensively. And funnily enough, that same stat I saw, Bamford was top of it. The most big chances missed. I think he had something like 11. And he's not scored a goal this season. That's the difference. I think Rodrigo started the season well, got himself injured. They haven't really scored any goals since he went down. So yeah, I do think it is the fact that they don't have someone to put the ball in the net on a regular basis. I think they do a lot of the build-up play really well. They're really pretty football inside. I think Aronson, is a brilliant player. I've liked him since his days in the MLS. Really good player. Tyler Adams, another. I'm a big fan of MLS and big fan of the American national team. Both of those players have come in and done really well in the Premier League. But you need someone to score goals. That's the main thing you need to stay in this league.
It is, isn't it?
You see teams
really is.
You have players who are Brentford. Tony's banging goals for him, basically keeps him in the league. Right.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I'd be interested to see what Brentford will be like without Tony, because they are another team that play nice football. But what would they be like without someone who can put the ball in the net? And I always feel that's the difference between the teams that get promoted out the Championship or not, right? If you've got a guy like a Brereton Diaz, a Jay Rodriguez, that sort of a player, if you've got them scoring 20, 25 goals a season, Timo Pukki, if you haven't, you could be as good as you like, but you're not finishing your dinner. I just want to move on. Sorry, just quickly. Fuzzy Khan, sorry, mate, you're saying I'm not. Just so you know, Fuzzy Khan, Henry's streaming right now somewhere else. And I'm not going to talk to Henry right now. By the way, he's meant to be live with me and Devo right now, and he's doing his own show. Yes, so don't talk to me about can I get him to unblock you. He's meant to be live with me, yes. However, it is what it is. Devo, let's talk about Champions League then. Let's move to the Champions League. Look, we've got Barcelona that have dropped out to Barcelona that have dropped out now to the Europa League, right? Yeah. We have got, let's have a look, all the games tonight. We've got Atletico Madrid, if I'm not wrong. Atletico Madrid are going to be dropping out as well. They cannot catch Porto in second place in their group. And that was a group with Club Brugge, Porto and Leverkusen. Are we starting to see some of these so-called bigger clubs lose their grip in Europe? Or is that too much of a knee-jerk reaction?
No, we are. I believe we are. I think I'm not sure, I can't put my finger on why, but I do think that some of these so-called smaller clubs in Europe are producing some really, really good players. And they're not necessarily losing them as early as they would have before. I think a lot of clubs now are looking at big name players and trying to sign these marketable players and not necessarily poaching from academies anymore. You look at Club Brugge, they've got quite a bit of money for a Belgian side, but they've got some really good players. Noah Lang has been linked for a move for 2-3 years. No one's been able to get him. Porto are always going to be a good team in Europe. We know that. But yeah, I think the Barcelona thing, that was a tough group. So one of Inter, Bayern or Barca was going to drop into the Europa League. So I don't think you could look at.
But are you surprised
too
at
bad
how poor they've been? Like they've lost both games to Bayern Munich, and I think did they draw one and lose one to Inter?
Yeah, I as an Arsenal fan will never ever look down on a team getting battered by Bayern Munich, because they've battered us countless amount of times. They are bullies. It's what they do. So Bayern on their day will beat anyone, and they will beat them handsomely. So for Barca to lose twice to them, fair play.
But it's the nature, isn't it? Like I watched the first half in the first game between Barcelona and Bayern Munich, and I thought Barcelona looked brilliant. I thought Barcelona, Lewandowski missed a few chances, so did either Pedri or Gavi. And then second half, it was almost like, right, that was as good as we've got. We've got nothing else, and Munich battered them. Tonight, I think Munich have beaten them, 3-0? Is that worrying with the amount of talent that Barcelona's got, that it's not just that they're getting beaten, they've been blown away both times, and then Inter Milan have beat them? Surely they should have put up a bit more of a fight than going out 5 games into the group, right?
Yeah, I mean, Barcelona fans won't be happy, but you have to remember it's a very young side as well. Barcelona side, you've just mentioned Pedri and Gavi. They've got some really young players in there. Dembele's still quite young.
Good players, very good players.
So they've got Ferran Torres, who's young. They've got really good young team there. So I think as long as they can keep them together, they will get better. But I think being in Europa League could actually help them, because there's less pressure on them in that. I think they'll probably stroll into the semi-final. And then, boom, they've won themselves a European Cup at a young age. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if it's an Arsenal-Barcelona final and they do us again.
Oh, yeah, you're putting yourself into the final already, are you, at the Arsenal?
Well, we always do well in Europa League. We get to the semi-final minimum mostly, unless we play Olympiacos. Interesting.
So let's talk. Obviously, I don't want to. It's late at night. We'll go for another 5-10 minutes. Just want to say, in your opinion, Champions League this year, who are we looking at? We've lost Atletico Madrid. We've lost Barcelona. Man United. Man City still there. Chelsea still there. Real Madrid still there. Inter Milan. PSG scoring a lot of goals for fun. What are you saying? Can you see anyone out of the big clubs? Anyone outside of those big clubs winning it, or are we gonna have a winner from the usual suspects?
For me, Real Madrid. I know they lost to Leipzig yesterday, but Real Madrid will always be my favourite in the Champions League because their record in the competition is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would. Well, I'm not going to say I would like to see PSG win it, but you'd think it's about time PSG put their name on it. Same thing goes for Man City. But if any of the outsiders, and I think someone just said it in the chat, Napoli look devastating this year. They look a really good outfit. And when I looked at their squad, I actually looked at their squad. Their squad is just stacked from front to back. They've got so much depth in that squad. It wouldn't surprise me if Napoli went on a really deep run, because no one's going to want to go there. It's a tough place to go.
How good are they? Let's talk Napoli for a few minutes. I mean, first of all, the bloke whose name I can never ever pronounce, is it Kisashvili?
I haven't got a clue. I wouldn't even attempt it.
I mean, he takes players on for fun. Like, I'm watching this guy going, you can't get out. Oh, yeah, you can. Like, he runs into 3 players, comes out with the ball. Then I look at other players they've got all across the park, like Simeone, like Lobotka, Kim Min-jae. They just look solid. They play good football. They work hard. What's the kind of ceiling, so to speak, for a club like Napoli in the Champions League?
We've seen it before. You look at the Monaco side a few years back when Mbappe was there, and they made a run all the way. So we've seen it. Porto, Mourinho, that's going back some time, but you've seen these teams that have been made up of just solid teams all across the park, top players. And it wouldn't surprise me if Napoli could follow suit. I would like to see that, but the thing is with Champions League, it all comes down to the draw, doesn't it? So, Napoli could get drawn against a Bayern Munich in the last round of 16, and Bayern Munich just turn it on, and they're gone.
Yeah,
if they can navigate the draw and get some favourable draws, you can see them getting deep.
Isn't that what it's always about, right? Like I suppose when like Spurs made it to the final, it's all about like you say, navigating that draw. If you get the luck of the draw, you get Bayern Munich in the next round. Everyone's going, oh God, right? Well, we're out of Europe, but no offense, but you get I don't want to say it in case that it haven't. Like you get a Club Bruges, and you're thinking, right, okay, I fancy myself over two legs here. So, wouldn't it be lovely to see someone like Napoli win it though? Wouldn't it? It would just to put the cat amongst the pigeons and not always have Real Madrid or someone.
They're such a passionate fan base as well. Just imagine the videos coming out of Naples if they ever did in the Champions League. It'd be incredible. So yeah, I'd like to see that.
I'd like to be there for that if that happened. I mean, when we're looking, is it beyond the realms of possibility that? I mean, look, Liverpool. I'm just going to chuck this out there. Liverpool have gone through, I believe now. I think that win tonight saw them qualify over two legs. No one likes going to Anfield. It turns into a fortress in European nights. Could this be one of them where they have a really dodgy league season but rescue themselves with a really good Champions League run?
Yeah, I will never bet against Liverpool in Europe for the precise reason that you just said. If they can get a result away from home and they bring it back to Anfield, they're going through. That's generally what happens. So, yeah, I wouldn't bet against Liverpool. They're not the strongest team in the competition, but it's not always the strongest team that wins it. Many of those Real Madrid sides that won Champions League were not, the top side in the competition.
Exactly.
And had what it took.
And they get written off every year, Real Madrid. I mean, look, obviously no one's going to write off Real Madrid, so I'm not going to ask you that question. But can they win it again? Would you actively right now back them to win the Champions League this year, Real Madrid?
I would, solely off of they've been brilliant in the league. They've got Benzema's a difference maker. Modric is one of the best central midfielders of all time. Vinicius Jr. is on stupid form. They've got arguably the best manager of all time. I think it would be a bit foolish to not back Real Madrid. Yeah, Courtois, best keeper in the world. It's all there.
So, last question I'm going to ask you then before we go. Thank you for everyone who's stuck with us throughout. Who's winning the Champions League? Because we just said there, Bayern Munich, this, that, Real Madrid, Man City, Liverpool. Give me a team.
PSG.
PSG.
I'm going to go PSG. I think it's this is going to be Messi's year. He's going to win World Cup with Argentina. He's going to win the Champions League, and then might call it a day.
Do you know what? I'll come back to Champions League in a second. I think Argentina will win the World Cup because their team is just phenomenal. What a way to sign out that would be for him winning the World Cup and Champions League. I'm not saying he's retiring anytime soon, but no one would be able to say anything, would they? If he wins the World Cup, that's always what's been levelled at him, right?
Yeah.
If he wins the World Cup, does he go down as the greatest player ever?
I think he does, even if he doesn't win the World Cup, personally.
I agree.
I think if you look at him as a player, there's no player. I'm a big fan of Ronaldo, original Ronaldo, R9. Big fan of him, as anyone from our age group probably is, because we saw it live and we couldn't believe what we saw. Messi is clear of R9, I think, for me. I think when I've watched, you look at what Haaland did, I saw someone say if Haaland was to score, at the rate he's scoring right now for the rest of the calendar year, he'd still be 30 goals shy of what Messi did when he had 91 goals in that year. And you're thinking, that is outrageous. And it's not just, he scores all sorts of goals and assists. I think he's got something like 20 odd goal involvements this season already at PSG. That's unbelievable. The amount of goals he scored for 15 years on the run. No one can touch it. No. Yeah. No one's done it as consistently long as him. No one.
It's just ridiculous. This is the thing. When people talk about best players that have ever played the game, and we look at Messi and Ronaldo, etc., I just think longevity plays such a huge part for me. And the fact is, even now, when you watch Messi play, and he's got a different role, he's so deep these days, but still the way he dictates a game. Even he could play in a telephone box and he just dictates. But look, we could go on all night if we're going to talk about Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. But look, Devo, thanks very much. Look, next week we might have Gav Mack joining us. God knows where Henry is. That's what you get for loyalty. Look, we will see you next week. But Devo, thanks very much, mate. I would say good luck. I do not want to see Arsenal win at the weekend, but I think you will. And we'll touch base next week. But thanks to everyone in the chat.
Peace.
Much love, and we'll see you soon. No, always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.